and I've made some really bad mistakes.
Tell us about some of those mistakes. It's fine to admit and accept and move on from them. And
I actually think there is beauty in learning how to fail and share more about it, because it's easy for me to come here and talk about my success.
Pretend it didn't happen.
No, it didn't happen. But yeah, I think the first one was when I was 23. I was so eager with, the idea that you can become financially free at 30 and it's just an easy job. So I went to this.
G'day, I'm Andrew Malcolm and we're back again with the Auckland Investment Club, and we've got Dani here from Enable Me, and she's worked in various different roles in the financial advisory space. Now, the Auckland Investment Club is a community of motivated and inspired investors. That's one of the reasons I've got you here, because you're a motivational person, and you can follow along on your LinkedIn and Instagram, and you're talking about the investing, the good side and bad side. Tell us, describe yourself. What drives you, and what are you up to day to day?
Yeah, thank you for having me here. It's always good to be able to share, my journey with other people that are trying to achieve the same thing. But yeah, my journey is all over the place. I started, I think, when I was 18 back in Brazil, because I'm not originally from New Zealand. So I came from Brazil to New Zealand when I was 21. And as any other immigrant, I got here with no English and had to do, just working hospitality, build up my English. And then but I always kept the passion of wanting to invest in property. Yeah. So during COVID, I just decided to change career when I got residency, and really trying to steer away from technology, which is my original career, and start working with property. Yeah. So I've done everything from, working with a property management company, coaching people to add value to properties, to now being able to really help different kind of, Kiwis with different backgrounds to achieve their goals through property or building wealth, or depending on what they're trying to achieve right now. So that's a long story short.
Yeah, well, I think what you're good at is helping people to think about getting started. Because buying that first property or buying that first investment property is the hardest part for a lot of people. There's the desire, but taking action is often, it doesn't follow that desire.
That's true.
Tell us about your investments at the moment.
Yeah, so as I mentioned, my first property I purchased when I was 18, and it was very similar to a Kiwi build scheme. So I got the first one that for me back then looked and sounded really impossible, because I was just, coming from a really humble family. I didn't have generational wealth, but I was just looking around and looking the options out there. Yeah. And then obviously I moved to New Zealand, and then I was working really hard and doing overtime to save as much as I could. And when I got my residency, I got my first property here when I was 25. Yeah. But before that, I was studying and trying to network with people in the industry. So even though it is the home that I live in right now, I don't see that as my home. It's an actual investment. Yeah. Because it has a lot of different strategies that I can unlock within the one property. Yeah. To generate more income or to boost my portfolio. And then I got a new build 3 years ago that just finished last year. And I have, one other property that I bought in Brazil as well, maybe another 5 years ago. Yeah. So it's a bit of a mix, because I think my journey was just trying to learn what was the trend and follow other people. And I've made some really bad mistakes.
Tell us about some of those mistakes. It's fine to admit and accept and move on from them. And
yeah, I actually think there is beauty in learning how to fail and share more about it, because it's easy for me to come here and talk about my success.
Pretend it didn't happen.
No, it didn't happen. But yeah, I think the first one was when I was 23. I was so eager with, the idea that you can become financially free at 30 and it's just an easy job. So I went to this seminar from people that came from UK.
Yeah.
And then it was a 3-day seminar. You would sit there, and basically the idea was you buy a property, you add value, you take the equity out, and you recycle that, and you go again and again.
Yeah.
As soon as you get to 10 properties, you're financially free. So I thought, okay, this
Sounds
is a
great.
no-brainer. What do I have to do? So they sold this course. On the 3rd day, they would call everyone on the back of the room. It's like, hey, if you want to join, now's the time.
Yeah.
It's $50,000.
Oh, yeah.
And then at that point, I was like, hey, easy, I'm just going to find the money. It was really interesting because they were actually saying, go to your bank, get a credit card, do this, do that.
Yep.
And because I have this go-getter instinct, I was like, oh, I'm just not going to take the risk.
Yep.
So I joined, I paid for it, and I got a personal loan as well as like a couple of credit cards. And then it turned out that the company went bankrupt. So I lost that money. Never got it back. Fortunately, they had a partnership as well with a company in New Zealand, so I was able to get some value from the company in New Zealand they were working with them.
Yeah.
But that was a big shock. But if anything, I just thought, well, now that I put that much money into something to get me ahead, I need to make this work. So that just ate out a big chunk of my potential deposit to get a property here in New Zealand. So that was definitely like a terrible mistake that I made, but I don't regret it completely.
Yeah.
Obviously, I would love to have my $50,000 back, but it just shows you that not everything is going to work out.
Yeah,
as you want.
and it's the right attitude in the sense of take action, learn from experts, and in the long run, it sets you on the pathway of investing in the right thing.
Totally, yeah. So that's probably number one, and I think the second would be just trying to follow what everyone is saying.
Yeah.
The one thing that I quickly realized that property is not one size fits all, depending where you are in your journey.
Yeah.
It's going to be suitable to you or not, and you need to find out what works for you.
Yeah.
And I kind of regret getting the new build because 3 years ago, I only had 20% deposit. I didn't have the 35 that was required back then to get an existing build and add value. So that has slowed my journey down because right now I'm tapped out in equity as well as, the DTI serviceability. So I need to wait for the market to adjust or maybe sell on a loss to buy more.
Yeah, and you still got the properties in Brazil?
I've sold one of them and the other one's still there, but I really want to sell it. But the economy there is not very good, so I would give it away if I would sell it now.
Yeah, do you rent it out to family or Airbnb or?
Yeah, no, I'm renting it out at the moment. I was planning to Airbnb it because I thought, okay, I can generate more income. How can I be creative? So I actually renovated. I put everything in, and there was a disaster in my my hometown recently, like a terrible flood, and there was this person that really needed a home. And then I just said, okay, you can have it for a year. So I'm probably not getting a lot of money from it right now, but the idea of having those investments was just to generate enough income to help my mom there so she doesn't work. I actually I used to have to send her money from here, and then now that's almost enough for her. Yeah.
That's good. Yeah, it's such a common thing for people that come to New Zealand to send money home. And some of the people that are sending money home are the ones that are making the biggest kind of splash in the investment world because they just work that much harder.
Yeah, it's just the extra incentive that you need to keep going, I guess. Yeah.
And so what investment goals have you got for you? 5, 10, 15, 20 years? What are you thinking?
Yeah, well, Dani, that was 25, thought she would be financially free right now. I just turned 30. That's definitely not the case. But looking back, I think I have to give myself just get myself some slack because from not knowing how to speak English to now having a few properties here and being an advisor is really good. But at the same time, looking forward, what I really want and what I'm passionate about is number one, helping people achieve their goals. And then through my work, generate enough income to start probably focusing more on the add value strategy. let you just, refresh properties that are probably not habitable right now and bring them back to the market for families to live in. But also it's a good equilibrium between equity and serviceability, because usually the yield on those properties are better.
Yeah, yeah. And so your investment philosophies have kind of evolved and shaped quite a bit in the last few years. How do you share the way you think about investments with some of your clients?
Yeah, I think I try to I'm absolutely passionate about property investment alone. And obviously you can do so many different things within the property investment world. But as I mentioned before, there is no such thing as one size fits all. So when I talk to a client, I try to understand what's the end goal.
Yeah.
I think I just shared a video this week about people. They usually think you need 10 properties to retire well. If your goal is basically retire on 100K income from age 65 to age 90, you don't necessarily need to make property a full-time job.
Yeah.
So it has given me the skill to learn what's right for the person. And because I have tried a bit of everything, I can tell them, okay, so if you're a mom and dad investor, you don't have a lot of time and you're on, your 40s, 50s, this is the number of properties you need to achieve the goal that you want by this age.
Yeah.
And then the strategy will be bespoke to that specific client and their lifestyle as well.
Yeah, yeah. It's almost inescapable, though, if you want to keep going for the bigger portfolio with more income. You just really have to find a way to add value, or certainly buying at a discount.
More than ever right now. It's just really hard.
What investment are you most proud of?
Yeah, I would say the property that I live in right now, which is I made a lot of research and I probably looked for a whole year to find the right deal.
What's so good about it?
Yeah, I can unlock so many strategies from that one property. So number one, I wanted to make sure I bought something that was developable.
Yeah.
So it's nearly 900 square meter site.
Yeah.
And then the second thing I was looking at was, can I, in the meantime, turn this into a home and income? So it's a 2-story house that I can potentially turn into a home and income to start with. And I could also, in the meantime, build something in the back.
Yeah.
But in 10 years' time, if I want to sell to a developer or do it myself, I can do it too. And what I've been doing is it had to be a big house. So it's a 4-bedroom house. I live in the basement and I have 3 boarders upstairs just helping me pay, my mortgage right now. And that's something that I'm completely comfortable with because it's a short-term sacrifice for, the long-term gains that I can make. So that one property is just really,
little
speeding.
Cash cow.
Cash cow. Love it.
Yeah. It's good to have a variety of experiences, and now you've found what works for you. And so what about, what strategies did you kind of put into play to find this property you've got?
Yeah, I think the interesting was I knew exactly what I needed. So it had to be 4 bedrooms plus, so I could have enough flatmates to, no more with this interest rate, but to cover, my mortgage. And I wanted to be a 2-story property, the size of the land, and all that. But when I looked at this property, it was a really hot market. It was around 2020. And I was just before March, so June 2020, after COVID, and everything was going crazy. But I noticed it was a real estate agent that was selling. The company was not really well known. So he didn't advertise really well. So I found that gem. I was like, okay, I need to go there in person. So I talked to him. I realized there was some unconsented work in the property that was not major that I could, deal with. So I went to CoreLogic and I realized the person that was selling, they had purchased another home already. Which was super expensive.
Deadline.
So they were like, okay, they need to sell this home. So they were selling it for $950, and then I offered $900 and they rejected. So I wrote them a letter saying, hey, it's me and my partner. We are a young couple. I would love to live in your home. And then they actually took that into consideration. And I knew as well that they needed the money for the new property they purchased. So I put that under contract and I purchase for 50K less that they were asking.
Nice.
Just by understanding the vendor's motivation, right?
Yeah. So it was good timing. No, I wouldn't call it luck because obviously you're doing the work and
Probably as well. It's always an element. Yeah.
everything came together.
Yeah.
So how do you see? I mean, you're talking to a lot of clients all the time, and you're doing your homework on the market. How do you see the outlook on the yields and interest rates for the next 5 years? So much chatter about it.
Yeah, I think, well, we know from historical data that every 10 years, in theory, the price of houses should double. And right now, I think we're going through the hardest or the toughest
Slump.
part of it. Yeah. So I think we're trying to predict everything. It's always hard to say. We're all just guessing. And that's what I tell my clients. You can read, all the books. You can look online. And it's just hard to know. No one would know 4 years ago what's happening right now. So I think if you can focus on getting a good quality property in a good era and just go back to the basics, location, getting something for a good price, make sure the yield is stacking up. The interest rates, they will fluctuate. They will always change.
Hopefully down.
Yeah. And I think hopefully down. Well, it has to go down at this point.
Yeah.
But I think the biggest mistake is just people not having a plan or not looking at the cash flow. They just go and buy all these properties and they can't hold into it and have to sell for a loss. But yeah, I think it's positive. If you can, just, try to get the best product that you can get out there. Don't go for something that the yield is really low because you're going to struggle financially to top up on that.
Yeah.
But the interest rates, I'm sure they'll come down, but I think it's lower than we thought initially. Yeah, it's going to take a while.
And where do you go to for your property research and to learn about the value-added strategies? There's lots of people trying to educate the market at the moment.
Yeah, it's interesting because, as I mentioned, like for education right now, you can go on Instagram and TikTok and find different influencers. And I think you have to be open to listen to people that you don't agree with as well as with people that you do agree with, because otherwise you're just going to be biased and always learn from the same people. But I think we have great people here in New Zealand, like Elsa Wolf. We used to work with her in the past. And to be honest, I think I'm more like right now focused on learning more about behavioral psychology and behavioral finance, because looking at my clients, most of them have so much potential, but there's always a psychological block that is stopping people from taking action until it's too late. So
there's a lack of urgency. It's important, and people know that waiting is probably costly.
Yes.
But if they have 10 or 20 years to achieve it, they say, well, why should I do it today?
Exactly. And then it's just like delaying the gratification is really hard.
Yeah.
So I think for the last 10 years, it's just all about property. But now I'm trying to learn more about people, because if I can combine those together, it gives me, it's just all the tools that I need to really get people that, because obviously if you're an investor, you know what you have to do, but I would love to help people that are not even there yet. And how can you change from that mindset of scarcity to, I think you mentioned to me once, like the abundance mindset.
Yeah.
Because if you don't have that, then you're not going to get anywhere.
Yeah.
Really.
And what do you learn from some of your clients that are doing really well? What have you taken away from that?
Yeah, it's interesting because I find that the most analytical people have the hardest time of taking action. So sometimes not knowing a lot, it's kind of a blessing. And people, they are happy to take on advice. So if you think that you know everything, you're wrong. You're not going to do well. So network, get around, and meet with people that know what they're doing. But I think what I've learned the most is just having a plan and making sure your cash flow can sustain the properties you want to buy, so you don't get stuck on the first or second investment. Because getting the first usually sounds like the hardest, but if it's not the right buy, you're going to be stuck.
Yeah.
And then the dream is over, or you have to sell everything and start again.
Yeah, it's definitely our mentality as well at Mortgage HQ is to focus on the yields and not over leverage. So you're leaving some room in the tank for third, fourth, fifth property later. If your borrowing power is say 900,000 now, just go to say 600,000-700,000, and that next property will come a lot faster. And
and just finding, because a lot of people, they really focus on paying down their home mortgage, which is the right thing to think about, but having the right structure to do that as well, so you can continue leveraging that.
It's definitely frustrating when people say they want to pay their mortgage off before they buy investments, because they'll pay the mortgage off and then get a mortgage on that house anyway to buy the investment. Like it's not logical. So
I think the biggest thing that I look at right now is just so many people, they have equity in their homes and it's just sitting there not being leveraged. That's you're sitting in a gold mine. So if you don't know what you're doing, just talk to someone and make sure you take action.
Yeah. So you've had a lot of mentors and coaches. What are the important takeaways? Certainly working for Ilse, you would have learned a lot. What do you think is the biggest lessons you've taken from those mentors?
Yeah, it's really interesting because I had this concept that mentor would be someone that would be with you for life.
No.
But it's not. I love networking, and I think that's why I've just I wouldn't be where I am without networking with all those people that I met. And every time I have a conversation with someone, I learn something new. But I think if I could combine everything, is learn how to take risks and being okay failing through that process. Because we have this natural instinct that comes from our ancestors that if you fail, it's almost like seeing that as death. But if you're still young, and even if you're not, you can take calculated risks and just go for it, because it's easy for you to be in your mind thinking, oh, I'm going to do this and that and that, but time will go by and you haven't done anything. So what's the smallest step that you can take forward today to get you there? And then once you do something small, you're just going to feel motivated to continue going. And that compound action can take you really far.
And so over and above being, having the wealth yourself, when you do have full financial freedom and money coming in consistently, what causes and what's your why? What drives you to make more than just the minimum? You must have things that you've charities or community things that you're thinking about that you want to help out when you get to that stage.
Yeah, and I think at some level I'm already doing that right now. But when I was talking to you about learning more about psychology and behavioral finance, is just being a woman in finance had its tough moments. And I realized that for many women, I don't like that separation of, we need to do everything for women only. But we are different, even biologically. So I would love just to be able to build a community for women to feel more comfortable in that space, but bringing in the equity, not necessarily just equality, because we are built differently. We don't take as many risks, but that's all comes back to
more intelligent risk taking.
More intelligent risk taking.
But less risks.
Less risks. And how can we leverage that difference to really build something for ourselves? Because again, coming from a humble beginning, my mom, she didn't have any qualifications in, so I don't want her, other women, to have to go through the same. And just helping people understand why they have certain habits that are just holding them back to getting the things they want. So that's just something very specific that I'm really passionate right now. But even if I would win lotto tomorrow, I would say I wouldn't stop working, because I get so many, a lot of satisfaction from doing what I do.
And where should people find you if they want to follow along on the journey?
So they can follow my Instagram, dani.paim, or just dani.paim. In English version, or go to my LinkedIn page. I try to be in there as much as I can in between work and everything else that I do.
Cool. Oh, well, thanks for coming along, and we're going to be having more events soon, and I'd love to have you along.
Yeah, I would love to. Thank you for having me.
Cheers. Cool.